Welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Stories and advice about moving forward, punching through that glass ceiling, pushing harder, and blazing trails from women we really admire.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women, where we talk about the stories of women who lead, build, reimagine, and sometimes completely redo systems that need to be broken.
Amen. Today's guest is doing all of that in a field where leadership has historically looked one particular way.
Right. And we're excited to introduce all of you to Shauna Hannan. She is the president of the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Before we even let her talk, because I really want to put some shape around Dr. Hannan. She began her presidency in July of 2025, so not quite a year into that, but before that, she served as professor of homiletics at Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary, taught at the Graduate Theological Union, and has served as a pastor, professor, admissions director, and she's been ordained in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America since 1998.
That's a lot, but there's really more to
But wait,
brag
there's
about.
more.
There is more. So she holds a PhD from Princeton. I think that's pretty cool. You got your master's in divinity, right, at the Lutheran Seminary, and you got your BA from Concordia. So I consider you a divine brainiac.
Well, I don't think so.
No, exactly. That's how we see
Well,
it.
welcome nonetheless.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And please call me Shauna.
Shauna.
I know, but you got the whole doctor
Well,
thing.
you say whatever you want, but I mean,
I'm
Shauna's cool.
Can I call you Doc? Maybe I'll do that. Well, you're also the author. I mean, here we go. We're still talking about accolades here. Author of The People's Sermon and co-author of Scripting a Sermon, Blending Theology and Filmmaking.
Oh,
that is pretty cool.
We definitely want to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
We do think that's pretty cool. And that's because at one point, that's what you thought you were going to do, right? Be a filmmaker?
I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And maybe, do you still want to be a
Still
documentary?
do. I mean, this is what I say. There's still time.
There's always time,
Exactly.
right? So you wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, and you said that you don't think preaching and filmmaking are all that different. I love when people take two things that feel very disparate and blend them together, because that's when genius happens, right?
Huh.
So, but you had talked about preaching and filmmaking. Can you talk a little bit about how they aren't different, right? Because I think preaching is, one thing. So I'm tossing it back to you, Shauna.
Sure.
Can you tell us something about that?
Sure. I actually was just in Denver area a few weeks ago and was talking with a bunch of pastors. And I started the session by asking them, what are the differences and similarities between preaching and filmmaking, just to hear from them. And right off the bat, preachers notice that, well, filmmakers typically get a very long time to create that film. And preachers have every Sunday, whether they're ready or not, people are waiting to hear something. And then there are funerals and weddings and Lenten midweek services, everything in between. So there's not a lot of time for turnover. So in that case, they're different.
Okay.
It's also true that preachers don't have the gift of filmmakers of having a 2-hour feature film.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a 2-hour sermon these days. In fact, 8 minutes is good.
Right.
That might be enough, actually. So that the creation time and the duration time of the actual event are differences.
Understood.
But another big connector would be that you really are kind of documenting the big moments in people's lives, just like you mentioned.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the similarities really, I think, are, like you say, it's about storytelling. And when it comes to storytelling is about impact. I think a really important thing is to recognize that a sermon isn't just about disseminating information. Even if it's information about the Bible or God or who we are as disciples, it's an experience. We have access to information in so many ways these days. That's not what it is. It's about impact. So just like a filmmaker, preachers do well when they start with the hoped for end result. So you begin at the end and you work back and you say, how can I say something? What's the content and what is the way I say something so that it has this impact for the hearers?
Interesting. And that's very much the craft of storytelling and the craft of filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
So
Take some major creativity. And I've never thought about creativity in theology.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that, which gives me an opportunity. I mean, theology is just the study of God. And we like to talk about, now, I don't mean to preach, but I'll just say, like, we like to talk about God as a creative being who creates creative beings. So it's really all about creativity. If we're made in the image of God and God is creative,
You just reframed that for me because I grew up in the Catholic Church and have
he does not like you. He does not like you.
I didn't see it that way, but thank you. That was pretty cool.
Well, I mean, if you talk about that, and I think it's interesting. So you wrote this book scripting a sermon, right? And so it is a performative nature, right? Theater was born from that ritual, right? If people don't know about that, right? The whole altar, everything, that's where theater came from, was from the ritual of that. So in a sense, you're not faking it. You're not an actor with a K, but you are up there, right? Performing a story that should be moving, which is a lot of what theater is too. So
yeah, absolutely. We could have written a book on preaching in theater. And a lot of people have made that connection. It's interesting when you say the word performance. I like to think of that in this way, because people bring that up a lot, like, preaching and performance, they don't go together, because it's not about pointing to the self or entertainment. Right. I think, though, if we think about performance, you just said it well, but another way to think about that is to think about its etymology. And now I'm sort of thinking, I have to check, is it a Latin or is it French? But if we go with the French, which I don't know that well, but parfournir, I think, is a word that is the etymology of performance, and it means to furnish. So if you think about, say you buy a new home or a new house, it's not your home until you furnish it with your things, with yourself, with your loved ones. And that is the performance of bringing God's word to life. You give it a home because it works through you as the preacher. Right. You give those words a home by your presence. And it doesn't do any good for a preacher to stand there and preach into an empty congregation. You also need the body, the people that are there, who are also furnishing, giving this word a home as they receive it.
Well, we talk a lot about that in theater, is like, whether you have a good house or a bad house, or whether you're, in the house being the congregation, right? But whether you have a good house or a bad house, whether you're connecting with them at any time. And I have a friend who's also a minister out in Florida, and he talks a lot about, for him, it is the sermon that because he's educating and giving people hope a lot of time. But he talks about the fact that, I can feel if I've got them. Is that kind of how do you have that symbiosis between yourself and your congregants? And is it called congregants in the Lutheran Church?
Yeah, congregants, right. I mean, one hopes that you'll have that. Yeah, that's the flock. But it doesn't, you can kind of really tell when it is not happening. Then again, I come from Minnesota, where, it's not, people in Minnesota aren't a monolith, right? Like there's a real variety of people, like everywhere. Mm-hmm. But in the congregation I served, there could be 700 people out there, and they're like blank stares. Yeah. But there's this kind of pietism about just be still, don't give me any feeling, whatever. And then afterwards, they're like, oh, that was amazing. I needed to hear that. I'm like, you could have, you've completely
give me some social cues, please.
I would have thought that people were kind of expecting a performance these days because, our worlds are, kind of showy. And so I'm like, get up there and entertain me.
Yeah, people do different things. I was mentioning this gathering in Colorado recently, and one pastor said, I like to always do something sort of entertainment-y, to get their attention or so they remember it. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. I also don't think we have to do that. We just, Just think of like spoken word artists, poets at a poetry slam or something. They could have 10 words and wow, they could whisper 10 words and the impact is felt just as much as a big showmanship, so to speak. But they're both a performance because again, you're giving the words, the images, you're giving them a home. Yeah.
And I think that you said, not in this conversation, but in the past, that a sermon it's not a lecture, right? It's an experience.
That's what I think.
I love that.
A lot of there. I mean, I've taught at the PhD level, and we looked at the history and theology of preaching, and preaching has gone through many, many different iterations. At one point, it might have been more about information, because preachers were in different places and in different times the most educated in the communities. They were the literate ones, pastors, priests, ministers, whereas everybody else didn't get an opportunity. And so there had to be some teaching. I like being Lutheran because we talk about Martin Luther in the 16th century who said, wait, and he was a Roman Catholic priest. He said, wait, why don't we let people read the Bible themselves and interpret these stories themselves and give them a
think
voice.
for themselves?
Right.
Oh,
think Protestant protest. They're protesting a particular hierarchy where only one person has the keys, right? And then the acts. So I talk these days all about access. How do we, if somebody's interested in theological education, interested in reading the Bible, interested in interpreting these stories for themselves out of their own social lenses, my goodness, that is
and you're
the
right.
Holy Spirit.
It feels like it's in a different iteration, as you mentioned a minute ago, where people are seeking spirituality versus theology.
Yeah, and there's a distinction. I mean, also the distinction might be between, some people think religion and theology might be the same thing. A lot of people have had experiences with what they might call the institutional church that has not served them, right? And I'm not saying the institutional church, whatever that means, necessarily serves people these days either. It's still a work in progress. It's a human institution. And as humans, we're not always quite on the straight and narrow, right? We're self-serving sometimes, and this is not helpful for other people.
Right.
There's a hierarchy. And my goodness, I mean, sometimes that's good order to have a kind of who reports to whom, kind of thing, who's responsible for what. But at other times, if we can kind of break that down, we just learn a lot of new things. So you're right. There are people who maybe have been hurt by the church, but they still consider themselves spiritual and in search of something, some kind of meaning in life. And I just want people to think there might be some institutional churches that might have an open door even for them. That's what we hope for.
But you're leading some change in that arena, right? And you're trying to get more lay people involved. Tell us a little bit about, how you are really kind of reimagining.
Yeah, well, I'm also, I didn't start that. Like, I actually think this is sort of a God-led thing also. It's just that we're just getting on board with that. But again, the 16th century, as Lutherans, we think of 16th century a lot because of the Reformation and Luther. But in that same way, Luther himself said, look, get this into the hands, let them interpret, even young people, even women, right? What?
Good Lord, no.
I know, right? So this is, to me, it's and Luther was not perfect by any means. He was a man of his time, and things were not perfect, right? So, and he made mistakes, and as a Lutheran church, we've apologized for those mistakes. But what he did do is he cracked this open. He talked about the priesthood of all believers. So, in other words, as an ordained pastor, I'm not the only priest in the room. Like, we all are as baptized members. But still, there are barriers. And sometimes those barriers are around learning and educating. Think, for example, of you go to a Bible study at a church, you're going to think the pastor, the minister, the priest is the one who talks the whole time. They're lecturing. Here's what this is about. This is this Luke 4. Let me tell you what it means. Let me tell you what the background. I've looked at the Greek, the original language, and here's what I know. And I do love languages. I've just spoken about the etymology of the word performance. But for me, a Bible study, as a pastor, as a professor, is to come together, read it, find out what lands for other people first.
It's a book club.
And you create, in a way.
The Bible book club.
I like it. And you also might give some creative prompts, like I'm going to give you a 3-minute writing exercise where you pick a character in that story and write for 3 minutes about their perspective on that day.
I love that. And as a creative person, right, immersing it in creativity and the interpretation, because I think interpretation is so important. Now, you're immersed in the arts as well, right? Your spouse is a sculptor, is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. And with art, right, we are taught attentiveness in a way, right? So for me, creativity, I have to slow down to take it in, right? And notice whether something's beautiful or what it is that it's saying to me. So do you think with religion that we've drifted away from that beauty it sounds like you're trying to reintegrate that into your practice, right? But yeah, because I struggle, I do. I'm spiritual, right? I don't go to an institution. Sure. But I remember talking to Keisha, your colleague, about
Keisha.
I know.
How'd you get that
hey,
in there?
Keisha, you better come on the show. I was talking to her because I thought, wow, what you're doing, like as a Lutheran pastor, president, I found great interest in it. And my friend, Andy, who's in Florida, who's a minister, I'm really interested in that kind of calling, but not because of God, right? But because of giving people hope and seeing beauty, right? So it sounds like you're like headed that way. When you look at the way you think about religion, how do you vocalize that or verbalize that to people?
When I think about religion, or related to like the art and beauty?
Related to the art and beauty.
Yeah.
When you think about it, because they don't live separately.
Yeah,
No,
how,
right.
How do you tie it all together?
Yeah. Let me go back. So to one thing you said about the kind of slowing down and really noticing, there's this exercise. I was going to say this with the Bible study example, that I will read scripture out loud, like you hear. You know what happens in church? Somebody's reading and they're almost not even... You can tell they maybe don't even care about. They're just like, no.
I fall asleep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And people are just, okay, let's just wait until it's done reading, and then they'll tell me what it means. But why not invite people to interrupt during the reading of the story with something called... It actually comes out of an Episcopal
I'd be an excellent
practice.
interrupter.
Yes. Oh, perfect. You just did it. Perfect. Perfect.
See what I did there?
Yes. There's this thing called godly play in the Episcopal Church, and this exercise comes from that. I notice. So you read slowly, you pay attention to the details, and then you offer your own voice to say, I wonder why... Or I wonder how Nicodemus felt when Jesus said that. I noticed that only 2 of Jesus' disciples are there. And you get the community riffing, like jumping in, and you hear what other people are hearing.
See, that's cool.
That is beauty in and of itself.
Yeah.
It might not be a visual art, but it is beauty because the body is coming together. We're hearing people's voices. It's like music.
That's
really.
the kind of
I love
invitation I think there needs to be more of. For sure. Absolutely. Because probably the way Mary and I grew up, your voice did not matter, So
I got in big trouble once when I was in church because there is no back and forth. You just listen and the priest said, having lustful thoughts is a mortal sin and you'll burn in the fires of hell. And I am like 17 and I went, oh, come on, out loud in Mass. Now, those of you who are Catholic know that's not allowed. My mother was mortified. I had to go see the priest after.
finally excommunicated.
Yeah, finally, thank you. I'm, what is it? Combustion, self-combusting.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's hard, right? I love that you're offering that because to me, there's a lot of interesting conversations you can have
Totally.
about
And it's not
that
inappropriate.
Yeah.
not
I mean,
inappropriate.
I like that you talk too about it made me feel this, or I noticed that. Have you had enlightenment moments as a result of that? Like,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like all the time. And so much so that now I don't accept an invitation to preach unless, well, now I'm not a pastor of a congregation now because I have this other job.
Gig. Yeah.
But I am invited to preach, certainly in our chapel, but also in other places. And I say, you've got to connect me with a handful of people from your community so I can understand your community. I don't want to fly in, give this speech, and then fly away, and then you pay me $10. You know, I mean, like, what?
Yeah, where's the relevance?
Disconnected.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to be, you have to know your audience, right? And not that 5 to 7 people are exactly what the whole congregation is, but it's at least a start. So I connect with them, and then then I can kind of hear what's going on there. Every time there's enlightenment in that. Like I would not have. Imagine if I had said this to this community of people, but they let me know this, like, don't touch that,
Right.
or unless you plan on staying here and sitting with us for a while, don't go there, and or we need more of this kind of thing. Not that a preacher gives a person every single thing they want to hear, but it helps to curate the sermon in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for our listeners to hear in terms of whatever they might be in is there's the active listening, right?
yeah.
And knowing where you are before you open your mouth, which I need to learn, frankly. I'm constantly opening my mouth and
Actually,
going,
none of us want her to do that. But
You just jump in.
I just jump in. But I think it's really important, for you to actively listen in a scenario where you might not know the people, right? And then you become much more valuable.
Impact.
Yes,
And so what
impact.
is so interesting, another thing that happens a lot, that somebody will say, like that example earlier, you know, put yourself in the shoes of the Samaritan woman who meets Jesus at the well. What was that day like for her? So they might write from that perspective. Then I have them share that. And if it really lands, I'll say, let's say the person's name is Liz. And I say,
like that.
I say, Liz, that was fantastic. And I say now, as I'm putting my sermon together, I think of it as crafting it, a kind of curating. If that story fits, would you mind if I shared it? Always ask permission. And then from the pulpit, always say, I got permission.
Yeah,
or everybody's going to think, oh my goodness, what's going to appear in the sermon now?
Right.
But better yet, why wouldn't I, at that moment, pass the microphone to Liz?
Yeah.
Like Liz shared something at our
I
Bible
would love
study.
that.
And she has agreed to share that.
Yeah.
So what happens is there's a different connection that's happening for
Yeah.
Liz, and between Liz and the hearers, and between for all of us. And the same thing might be, Mary, like you might have something to offer, and I say, we're doing this together. That's the people's sermon. But it isn't like I want you to say, I'm not willing to say something like you're going to burn in the fires of hell. So if somebody in the Bible study said, okay, Pastor, I think you should say this, I'm saying, thank you. I'll think about it. But no.
Right, exactly.
No, like there's still, I like to tell my students it's like bumper bowling. Like there's a lot of lane, but the bumpers are helping you
They're
not
still
go in
there.
the gutter.
Yeah.
And I've got to
Nice.
do
That's
that, to
good.
say that isn't what this is about if we look at the historical context or that understanding of who God is. I understand God to be a gracious God. So that kind of punitive something, I'm not willing
Punishing.
to engage in.
Yeah,
I'm not.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
not
I like
up to
that.
me. It's just not up to me.
It's a personal interpretation, really, right? Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about, those are great perspectives on preaching. What of all of that do you bring into your new role, which is so different,
It is different.
as president of the seminary?
Yeah. Well, it is different. I never, well, actually, I didn't anticipate anything in this life because I wanted to be a documentary film producer. I didn't think, I'm going to seminary until my pastor said, you should consider this. I didn't think of going to graduate school until a professor said, you should think of this. And then I've been tapped a few times to consider higher administration. I mean, I like seeing the big picture. I also like kind of digging in and saying, we've got a problem here. Can we come together to solve it? And that last part, I think, is really important. Yes, a person in this kind of position has some power and authority, but that's to be cared for. I mean, one needs to be gentle with that. I think there's actually more authority in collaborative decision making, and ultimately the buck stops here. I know that, and that's a lot to carry. But if I've got a team of people that I can run things by and give and empower them and hear their voices, it's sort of like, the people's seminary, really. Yeah. Now, in the end, you can't have 200 people all making a decision, right? And so, same thing with this idea of the people's sermon. Ultimately, it's the preacher, the one who's called to do this, who has to say, I've got 10 minutes to say something. I can't say it all. But there's always next Sunday, right? Tell me what you heard and we can come back to it. Yeah. That same kind of idea. I'll make decisions that maybe weren't the right decisions, but we're like, we've got this. Let's pivot. Let's redo. So there's that same
at least
collaborative.
It was informed by many voices,
that's
right?
what my hope is.
And then you can filter out what seemed very relevant and maybe what didn't. And
I love the through line. And now I'm a marketer, right? So I'm immediately thinking, if you didn't cover it in this week, come back next week, right?
There you go.
You have the people loyal to the organization, there's something really nice about that. I also think it's interesting that you are correlating being president almost to what you do when you're doing the Bible study, where you're asking people to answer questions. You're still embracing that, but you do have to make that decision a lot of the time. Theater is very similar. You've got a bunch of people who are being creative, but in the theater, you have a director. And at the end of the day, that's the person's vision, that's their decision. So I keep loving this correlation between filmmaking or anything theatrical or creative and what you do every day. That must be great to be able to merge a faith that's important to you with creativity. I mean, I think that's such an ideal. And I love that that Shauna is here with us, you guys, because I think it's important for you all to know that you can take these things and have. I'm not going to say, oh, you can have it all. I hate that expression, but you can find a wonderful marriage between the things that are most important to you. I think that's what you achieved, which is really cool.
Yeah,
and in essence, you're the director of a really big movie. Right now.
which will never see the end of editing.
There you go. Absolutely.
It's never
It's
done.
not.
No.
It's not. This is a work in progress. We inherit all the wisdom and goodness and even the mistakes from the generations before. And I like to think about 50 years from now, what might people who are connected to the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago remember about this era?
Yeah.
And hopefully there are some things that they can look to say, thank goodness they made those bold decisions, or we would not have been here. We know that they were hard. I mean, we know that fewer and fewer people go to church. Fewer and fewer people go to seminary. So how do our seminaries stay alive? We've had to really pivot to think of, we have this, speaking of Keisha, this program called Project Starling, where there are classes that people can take online on theology.
Nice.
And it's asynchronous, meaning they can kind of take it at their own pace, but it's high quality. The content is mostly our theological faculty, or at least people who've been vetted.
And it's not necessarily about the end game.
No, it isn't about having a degree or becoming a pastor.
Right.
For some people, it might be, but that is that access. So 50 years from now, hopefully they'll see that we've pivoted and said, how can we make the best of what we have to offer available to other people, and they get to decide what the end result is for them.
And I love that you're like, because to me that is just learning, right? And planting the seeds or having the fodder to 50 years. I love that you're thinking 50 years from now, people are still learning and growing and interpreting. I think that's really amazing. I like that for a vision.
But I have a question about the present. So
the present.
You are reimagining a lot. It even sounds like in this job you're reimagining a lot. But you're still challenged, right, by some of the old guard, right? How's that going? How's that going?
What's interesting about that is even the old guard in some ways, and we might say, some people might think of that as like men. Let me just say.
When I hear old guard.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I have nothing against men. Like, my dad is the most wonderful human being in the world, right? And, I have this great brother and uncles, and, and my grandfathers have died now. But, and men around me who are just so caring and whatever. So the old guard is a thing, not a person. And I would say that old guard is nostalgia.
It's an idea.
It's an idea. And, nostalgia, speaking of etymology, comes from the same word like analgesic, like a salve, whatever. It relates to the word, it's related to the word pain. And it's almost heartbreaking when you think, oh, I want to get back to that. And the getting back to what, though? We can't. Sure, I wish I were 30. Right. I used to run half marathons, and now I can at least still say that sentence. But I'm not running half marathons, right? But still, I feel like, no, here's where we are now. We cannot go back. So let's just not. It's painful, but we have to move through that pain and say, imagine that time 20 years ago, just for example, there were people then who had nostalgia for the 20 years before that.
Yeah.
And we thought those were the glory days. We're making the glory days, and we have got to keep looking forward.
They're all coming along for the ride?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I think they're not all, but I think so many people are re-envisioning. I really think COVID changed so much, obviously, but church as well. They had to move online. And we almost did it too well, that a lot of people are like still expecting. I'd rather just do my dishes and listen to the sermon and hear you sing. And this participation is different. There's a lot more to say about that, but I think we can't go back to pre-COVID. It was a moment, right? And so a lot of people don't want to go back to work in person. Students want classes online. They don't want to move to Chicago or wherever the school is. Right. And so we go to them. And so we're going to figure that we're going to go forward, and we can still do both. And that's our hope.
Yes.
That's our hope. That's the way forward.
I will tell you that during the pandemic, there was a church, I don't know what denomination it was, that I would drive by pretty regularly, and they would do service outside in the warm weather. And there was something that I was like, I want to go to that church.
Cool.
And just, you know what I mean? Just because I was like, way to take it outside, and people are out there on the little benches and they're all, doing their thing. And I was just like, I love thinking differently like that.
Yeah. We have a professor, Dr. Christian Sharon, who got a grant, and it's this Future Church Pilot grant. And he is working with ministries that are that. Taco truck ministries.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I need one of those.
Wilderness ministries. Everything is out in the open, and these are ministries that are attracting people who both had an unfortunate experience with the church, but also people who are just, that's where they feel at home, right?
Well,
and this,
it doesn't always have to be somebody disenfranchised,
right? Not always, but that variety is just gorgeous. As we're trying to figure out what are their needs and how could we as a seminary help resource them, rather than saying, that's nice, that's cute, come and do it this way. So I hope we can figure that out.
Well, I mean, I rumor has it that you love national parks, right? So let's make it personal. Camping, hiking, those are all my kinds of things.
Cool.
You have an Airstream in Minnesota waiting for more use, right?
Oh, I do. So sad it's there.
Yeah, you got to bring it. So that passion for that kind of thing, do you correlate that to what you do every day in terms of your presidency? Like that, because to me, like, trees are my God, to be honest with you. I could stay in
Forest
the woods.
bathing.
Yes.
What's that Japanese word? It's amazing.
I've done that before.
Wow.
It's really, really great.
It's sharing
taste touches all of your symptoms, or all of your symptoms, all of your senses, and you engage. It's beautiful.
I love that.
But I love that too. So I was like, okay, talk about wilderness for a little while.
Bring some of that to your position in Chicago?
Sure. Well, first of all, I would say we're in theological education in some ways in the wilderness.
Okay,
it's both open.
Interesting.
There's fresh air every once in a while. We don't know our way. And sometimes there are scary things that are ready to eat us around the corner, right? You know, we got to climb up the tree to get a different kind of vision. And then we got to come back down and move on. I mean, I can make a lot of correlations. There's no playbook for being a president of a seminary. It seems particularly these days. But again, I don't want to claim too much. Probably that was the case 10 years ago and 20 years ago. But I would say for me, it's about adventure. And who knows what's going to happen next week? Like almost every day I say to my assistant at the end of the day, I was like, who knew that was going to happen? Like, what? Right. And so, I mean, it is a kind of adventure. And I do think that things like strategic plans are important and planning for the future. In the same way you might say, I'm going to hike in at this point and 5 days later I'm going to hike out, like the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota. Gorgeous. But you have to plan when you go in and plan when you go out. But you never know if there's a storm in between. Or your compass, the bear stepped on the compass. Like, what's going to happen?
There's
right?
going to be something in the
You've
story.
You've got to have something that you can figure out. What are our touch points? Oh, the sun is here. It's this time of day.
Yeah.
What are those things that are our touch points or our markers? And so I could probably go on and on and on. It's not the same as going to the forest, though, because it's still very office-y. It's very, org charty. It's very decision making, spreadsheety. I like that. Yeah, and it's the kind of thing where it's a schedule. It's regular. It's different than truly in the wilderness. I could maybe just be in a different way, and I don't even remember that I'm a person who's had education or that I have these roles or titles or whatever, because we're all the same then. And I really, really like that. And it's like going back with your family. They don't ask about my professional life a whole lot because I'm just their big sister who's annoying.
They don't care. Right?
And
mine
I love
too.
that.
Yeah, I know.
I
it's
love
great.
that.
It's great because they're
Yeah.
not treating you like. Because you get treated differently. When you have president as a moniker, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is weird. When you're just
and I forget
That's
about
so
that.
special.
Right. I forget about that. Like the other day I said something to someone. And I said, just check in. Are you sure? Could you maybe make it to this meeting? And the person really didn't know that they could say no. And I'm like, are you kidding? I was just asking,
No.
And
So
so
they think, she asked me to go to the meeting. I'm going to have to go to the
I
meeting.
know. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's me, shut up. But then
You
it's
can say no.
It's a role, right? It's a role.
Oh,
and
there
then
we
there
go.
are times where I might bring the role and people are like, I don't care what you're doing. So that's complicated too. And on those days, I'd rather be in the wilderness.
I'm sure.
Yeah. That's a nice way to wrap this up. I think I want to ask you one thing for our listeners, right? If there's a woman, young, old, doesn't matter, out there listening right now and they feel called to ministry or to leadership, but it doesn't feel like they feel unqualified or whatever. What could we say to them out there about if you're feeling a calling to ministry, what do you think the best thing for them to do would be?
Great question. First of all, I still feel unqualified, right? And so that kind of thing is just, if at all possible, set that to the side or harness it and say that's the place for exploration. Like feeling like I'm not qualified yet. This is a work in progress. So,
And I think all of the things you've described today about how it's evolving and changing and including, should make people feel like they can definitely do this and they are welcome and you can make it different too.
Exactly. Like jump in, bring exactly who you are. Don't leave that behind. Bring the whole darn thing, right? And then talk to people. Ask people about it. Check in with them. It's a kind of discernment process. That we talk about that a lot. Like, I've been thinking about this, and what do you think? And some people say, what took you so long?
Yeah.
I mean, that happens sometimes. Other people might say, I don't really know that you've got it. Then go on to the next person. But then the other thing to do concretely is to find a course, find a webinar, find a seminary. I can name one for you.
Oh, yeah? What one might they find? Dr. Hannan.
Let's see, Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago.
There you go.
Many of our seminaries, many denominations have these access points. Take a class. Maybe there's a little bit of a fee to it, but you can, find ones that are, and sometimes pretty low, pretty light in the tuition.
Yeah.
Because we
Nice.
want people to get in. Take a class and just see if it's of interest,
Yeah.
right? My guess is you're going to meet people who will say, I was there too, and in fact, I still am.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
jump on board.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, jump on board.
Well, it might take a little walk in the woods,
Take a
right?
walk
And
in the
then
woods.
some animal will appear and give
There's
you that
so many
wisdom.
biblical
I
stories like that. Like
Yes.
Jesus was
Oh, I-
always like,
think it
that
always, I think it
happened.
happens all the time.
Oh my gosh, I was walking in the woods alone and a beaver was at a tree. And so I was like, I'd never seen one like IRL, as the kids say. I was just like, oh my God. And then I looked it up in real life.
I know. I
Okay. I was just like, IRL.
I was
trying to be
gonna
relatable. But just kidding. But I saw it and I looked up and I was like, this is my spirit animal. And it's beavers stand for creativity and productivity,
Productivity
Of
for sure.
course.
And forest bathe and take a class.
There
I
you
think
go.
are two good things. to
good
tell
summary.
people.
Good summary.
When I didn't know whether or not I should adopt my second child, I was walking in the woods in the middle of winter, and this gorgeous red bird appeared. It was not a
Wow.
cardinal, and it all flooded in. And
Wow.
it said, "Don't worry about the money. It's going to be there when you need it. Just do this now."
Nice. That's beautiful.
Fantastic.
Here we
I
are.
love
Fantastic.
that.
Yeah.
Now, would you tell that story in my next sermon, Liz?
I would love to, because I have just like Mary, I've got a bunch.
So many stories.
You each have that wilderness story. That's great.
That was great. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us
course.
today. Yeah,
Yeah.
this was enlightening, you know?
My pleasure.
Good choice of words,
Yes,
right? Very
thank you
enlightening.
both.
And
Yeah.
thank you, everybody, for joining. Now, if you like what we're doing here, which we hope you do, please follow, like, share, sign up for our newsletter and all the things that I don't know how to tell you how to do exactly, but just asking you to do them just the same.
And I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. If you would, please look up our sponsor, Women Belong. They are a membership organization on the global level, and they bring women together who are at any stage in their business career and any level of your career, and provide networking and support and fun. So look them up on womenbelong.com. And then
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks, Shauna, one
The
more
delight.
time.
Thank you. It's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.